I just got finished watching the latest Russell Brand video titled, "Why Are These Simple Ideas Being Censored?" And the premise of that video is new age perspectives of consciousness and oneness and everything a part of the new age agenda. That information is being censored. This is why I say the people who play the middle ground, who are largely ignorant to a lot of the information that goes beyond their self-involved perspectives of expanding their consciousness into oneness and a higher mode of thinking. These individuals and these thoughts are the most dangerous because those perspectives are setting the platform for the next style of mind control. And you can tell by listening to the teachers or these speakers that people like Russell Brand promote, and Oprah does the same thing on their Super Soul Sunday. You can tell where their limitations lie because largely a lot of their information is focused on working with the system that's already in place, working within the state of cancer, not at all addressing any of the historical events that have taken place that have led up to right now, but putting a band-aid on the gaping wounds of all the people, psychologically, physically, and spiritually. Once you get out of the need for that information, once you get out of the need for those questions, you can see the weaponization clear as day. And like I said, a lot of these individuals are not even aware that they have been weaponized. All of these words that we throw out there like soul and consciousness and awareness and awakening and enlightenment, all of this they're still words. They're still interpretations of an idea. They'll never get to explain what it actually is. They're just interpretations of something that we feel. So it's an emotion. It's broken down to emotional memory. These memories are passed down to us by the generations before us. We're largely just building off of the information that these individuals, our ancestors, have placed onto us. And beyond that, not even going into the ancestors, the people that are largely in the New Age community are just regurgitating what not even any ancestors are talking about. They're just regurgitating what feels good in the community of people that are hell-bent on finding things that feel good. Meditation feels good. A higher awareness feels good. Psychedelic drugs feel good. The New Age community feels good. Transcendental meditation feels good. Yoga feels good. These are all coping mechanisms for a destructive world. These are escape mechanisms largely. When you go into the perspective of narcissism and the victims escaping narcissism and escaping the psychological abuse, the New Age community is the perfect place for them to escape to. I'm not speaking from an outside perspective. I'm speaking from experience. When I was jumping and yelling in the Occupy movement about all of the things that I had been researching throughout my entire awakening and all that, through the military, through my whole life, I was inside a world, I'm going to use these words, a world of consciousness that I thought was it. It was just it. And the New Age community is the same kind of bubble. It's it. It's everything that you could ever want. It's everything that you could ever need because it feels good. Other communities do this just the same. Black conscious communities do this. Flat earth communities do this. White supremacist communities do this for other people. It depends on the individual. Whatever comfort group that they are attracted to, they're going to gravitate to that community because it feels good to them. Energy and motion, energy and motion is one of the biggest controlling mechanisms involving this so-called human experience. A lot of these people in these New Age communities talk about this idea of zero separation. There's no separation between us and them. There is no they, and all this other shit that they throw out there. All these other deflective tools that they use to rationalize or even just kind of escape addressing the discussion. But they never really go into defining what that really is. They never really go into it. These oneness and interconnectedness and all of it only goes so far. And it's only meant to go so far because, like I said in previous videos, the New Age agenda is designed to take people only so far. So when the authority of governments and world governments takes that position, that same position that these individuals are now awakening to, once they take that space, then they can take control of where that information goes, where that awakening is waking up to, how far it awakens, and where it's supposed to go. You have these people like Russell Brand and all the people that he's pushing out there talking about that they're being censored. You have those individuals who are doing the guide work, who are channeling the emotion of awakening into a particular idea. And they're designed to only go so far. These catchphrases like awakening and enlightenment and consciousness, higher consciousness, these are all tools to maintain the idea of expansion. My point in this video is expansion to what? Expansion into a deeper definition, to a deeper definition, to a deeper definition, to a deeper definition. To where? Where are you going? This is why I said in the last video, these individuals in all these communities, they have no goals. There's nowhere to awaken to. There's no higher awareness to raise themselves to. Once they get to that space, they're just going to want to go somewhere else. They're just going to keep wanting more and more and more. The point is, these places that people are pretending to go to are all in their minds. The idea of a higher consciousness, the idea of awakening, the idea of enlightenment, these are all ideas. And an idea is just a thought formed into an interpretation of something outside of yourself. So as soon as you interpret that thought into an idea outside of yourself, you created more separation. In creating that separation, you're going to have another separation to create after you created that initial separation. What I'm saying with all of my channel and my perspective overall is to let go of all this bullshit out there. Down to the perspective of the soul and the consciousness. Where is your soul? Where does this thing go once you die? See, we create these ideas like the soul the same way we create this idea of heaven. Religious groups create this space of heaven because this place is a hell, and you have to have a carrot dangling in front of you in order to move yourself forward somewhere. And these groups that are pushing you to move somewhere use perspectives like consciousness, awakening, enlightenment, heaven to move you somewhere as a mass of people for a particular purpose during a particular time through your emotion. Even your science community, these mainstream science communities, their version of enlightenment, they're calling singularity. And they're combining the new age awakening, enlightenment, higher consciousness with their technology through this idea of singularity. Singularity through the platform of the idea of simulation theory. This all being a simulation, a computer simulation that could be hacked with technology by hacking the human technology, the biology, and blending it with mechanical technology. This separation that happens with these carrots that are dangled, these higher thoughts, higher spaces of awareness, these ideas are actually adding to and creating, setting the foundation, adding to and creating the ideas of the counter action of that. So heaven is creating hell. The strive for a higher self, the strive for an awakening, the strive for a deeper consciousness is doing nothing more than planting yourself in a lower consciousness forever. This is what the New Age does. As long as you keep seeking something outside of yourself, seeking something higher than yourself, You are always placing yourself in a position lower than what? Than an idea, than an interpretation. For what? To guide yourself into something more. Meaning that the individual that you are and the space that you're in right now is not enough. Now that not only creates the idea of separation through the individual consciousness, but it also installs this lack, this never enough space of moving somewhere, because where you are right now is in hell. So awaken yourself to heaven, enlighten yourself to heaven, meditate yourself to heaven. It's all bullshit. They're all lullabies. It's the American dream dressed in a New Age robe. And since a lot of these people in the New Age community can't make the American dream, or many of them have and still don't feel fulfilled, the idea of awakening and enlightenment and raising their consciousness provides the same amount of dopamine, provides the same feeling as achieving the American dream. So it's back to feeling, it's back to an emotion, it's back to seeking something outside of yourself, towards something else. This something outside of yourself has been expanded into infinity with the idea of the infinite heliocentric universe. The beings that are higher than you, in a space that is higher than you, have been materialized in this idea of extraterrestrial aliens, in extraterrestrial planets, coming from higher dimensions, in more evolved dimensions, in realms or planets that are more unified and developed biologically and societally, and in ways that we can't even understand right now. Why? Because we're just little shits. We're little nothings that haven't evolved enough. The very nature of this thinking, this externalized thinking, is anchored in expanding the Darwinian evolution belief system, the heliocentric belief system that's centered in evolving from the Big Bang, just a piece of snot, to the planets, dinosaurs, monkeys, and idiots running around with smartphones. It's the most ridiculous fairy tale you could ever imagine. The ridiculousness of that fairy tale is starting to die off because people are starting to realize that they've been lied to for so long. They've been duped into their emotions. They've been duped into these limited ways of thinking to not only control the individual, but masses of people. So that style of control, that style of emotional manipulation needs to be expanded. The New Age community is a way to expand it. The so-called venturing out into extraterrestrial lands with space programs and the alien agenda and so on and so forth, this is another way to expand that. And like I said before, they don't really have to give you anything because you don't need anything. You create this perspective, this idea of evolving through your thought. So they just have to evolve your thoughts. They have to evolve your perspectives. And you'll feel like you're evolving. You'll feel like things are changing. You'll feel like you're changing. This is what happened to me in the New Age community until I started to feel that drugs start to wear off. Because what happens is that it doesn't change you. It changes what you're seeing. It changes what you're experiencing. It changes how you interpret the reality that's around you. And your interpretations are what's changing. That changing of interpreting, that changing of wording, that changing of definition is what passes off the illusion of awakening and enlightenment. Once I started to challenge these teachings and see that what they were doing was just constantly pushing the finish line somewhere else and generating a new idea of the finish line, but never really having any goals for the boots on the ground, never really focusing on what's happening in real time. See, the New Age community, the government, all this other stuff, it overcomplicates everything on purpose to maintain chaos. Once you overcomplicate this experience, once you overcomplicate yourself, once you overcomplicate society and so on and so forth, you're setting the foundation for that chaos. And now all you have to do is provide some kind of response or answer to that chaos. You have all the answers. The establishment provides answers for all the sides, the problems and the solutions. The New Age is just another form of the government. You have your problems, you have your less evolved individuals before the New Age jumping into a higher consciousness. That's the solution. Now they're coming together for grander solutions towards what? Fixing the problems of the government, which is going to fix the government in their eyes. This idea of a higher consciousness, this idea of being the soul instead of the body, it's nothing more than a personal heaven. It's a personal escape mechanism. People can't deal with death. They can't deal with the idea of not knowing what's going to happen after this. After what? Who says there's anything after what? What is dying? How are you going to know that you're dead? What is it that is dying? You can never define it. You can never grab onto it. As soon as you try to define it, and as soon as you try to interpret it, that's not what it is. It'll never be that. Ever. When you're listening to these New Age teachers and all these gurus and so on and so forth, you're listening to the most polished and the most professionally confused people ever. They have a very strong grasp on that which you can never grab onto. They've written books on this whole idea of what you can never touch, what you can never explain, what you can never define. These books, these interpretations, these smaller versions of heaven are what are leading up to and adding to the diseases and the cancers of hell that are existing inside the individuals and the society on a massive scale. The strive for a higher consciousness is maintaining the lower consciousness. When you explain what a higher consciousness is, you're just explaining what you've memorized from the difference between a lower form of consciousness. And then you get a more refined version of that memory and define it into another interpretation of a higher consciousness. This is what all these New Age teachers are doing. They're used car salesmen for this entire experience. They're real estate agents for the human condition. And you are the ones who are trying to figure out which house you want to live in. They're playing emotional games because they're playing emotional games with themselves. And the emotional game of awakening and enlightenment has been monetized. So these individuals pick one perspective, polish it up as best as they can, paint that heaven as beautiful and as attractive as it can be, to tug at the heartstrings of the individuals who are going to tune into that vision, and they sell it to you like an old beat up car with a new paint job, like an old rusted out house with a new roof. But what's at that foundation? What's in that motor? And where are you going to drive that car to? Where are you going to go once you get that new car? What are you going to do when you get in that house? The same shit you was doing in that old beat up ass apartment you was living in. The same shit. You can never escape yourself. These New Age teachers and so on and so forth, they're selling you escape mechanisms. And as soon as you evolve your consciousness, you're going to be looking for another more complex escape mechanism. The same escape mechanisms that are being sold to the individual are the same escape mechanisms that are going to be sold to the masses. And the same results are going to happen. They're going to sell you this idea of change, this idea of evolution, this idea of a higher consciousness. And it's just going to buy more time until the next evolution of escape mechanisms need to be sold to the individual and the masses. So as soon as you let go of what this car salesman sold you, there's another salesman at the next used car lot lined up there to sell you something else. So you jump out of the idea, you jump out of the car lot of the American dream, and you jump straight into the used car lot of the New Age community. And you'll forever be driving around those used cars because there's nowhere to go. You'll never be able to drive away from yourself. You'll never be able to drive into the heaven that you're looking for. If we let go of all these heavens that we've created, we'll realize what this experience is truly is. The balances that exist naturally within this system will be seen for what they truly are, without all the emotional baggage that has been attached to it by this system of chaos, monetized chaos. These communities, these systems, this establishment doesn't want you to do that. It wants you to be as complex as possible, because you're going to have different communities of complex individuals trapped in their emotion who are not going to be able to do anything other than maintain their traps. And when they get out of that trap, they're just going to move into another trap. That's the ultimate trap, is to have individuals on a massive scale trap themselves and argue amongst each other who has the best trap.